Accessibility and Inclusiveness meeting. Thanks to everyone who's joined us in person and online. We now have quorum, so I will call the meeting to order. First, I'd like to just start by welcoming Lisa Bhopal Singh, who is rejoining the city. We're very excited to have her back as our General Manager of Community Services and our Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, or CAO. So thank you so much for being here. Very happy to have you back, and thanks for supporting us at the meeting today. And I know some staff will have to duck out at a little bit earlier today because Nanaimo is hosting the 55 plus BC Seniors Games. So that's very exciting, opening ceremonies tonight. So thanks to everyone who's working hard on that. We have no late items to introduce. So if I could have a motion for the adoption of today's agenda, moved by Nicole, seconded by Sean, and all in favor. And that carries. Thank you very much. And then we have one set of minutes to adopt from our July 9th, 2025 meeting. If there are any errors or omissions to that, give me a wave. Otherwise, if I could have a motion for the adoption of that set of minutes, moved by Nicole, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. We have no council communications, so we're going to start today with a delegation. We have, pardon me, Sean?
Just a quick question about, I've never seen the read.ai meeting.
Yes, that potentially is the way that meeting notes are being taken, but actually, legislative services, question?
Anybody know?
Councillor Eastmere, we do not have the confirmation right now, but we will look into it and get a clarification as soon as possible. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for flagging that. It's not a confidential meeting. It's so I'm
just
confident with moving on, but absolutely, that is a good question. Okay, so we will move into our delegation. We have Patrick Squire joining us. The topic is concerns with the accessibility of community engagement opportunities, and Mr. Squire is going to join us at the podium up front there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. And the delegation, you have 5 minutes, and I'll give you a warning when you're 4 minutes in.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm here not only for myself, but for the many citizens in Nanaimo who find themselves excluded. There is a pervasive idea that everybody's online, and such is not the case. It's like a collective blindness to really being inclusive. I should have kept a record how many times I called various departments to be told they would do better next time, but it didn't happen. I'll give you some recent examples. Formation of this committee was a prime example. When it was announced under provincial legislation, they failed right from the start when they called for committee members, but only people online could join that committee. Nobody that wasn't online couldn't join that committee.
I'll just ask you to... I'll just make sure that you speak into the microphone that's in front of you there. Thank you.
I talked with whoever was the lead at that point, naively thinking this would be a priority for this committee, but it wasn't. Survey for Woodgrove. Public input only online. I had a good talk with planner, pardon the pronunciation, Cassia Bagan, who was aware of this shortfall, but sorry it still happened. BC 55 plus games. We have here, we have a half-page ad in the 100 Things to Do in Nanaimo. It's asking for volunteers, no phone number. I talked to Grace Bell in Parks on the 15th of July. The excuse was they didn't have a phone number. Think about that. They had the following: a long-standing committee to secure and run the games, email address, web page, promotional department, but no phone number. Was assured all future ads would have phone numbers. July 23rd, no phone number. I contacted her again and the excuse was they missed the deadline. She had contacted them after our talk, so they are admitting that the only reason the phone number was included because I had phoned. They had no intention of putting that phone number in. City reuse rendezvous. It's on garbage collection scale. Info online, no phone number. I called Public Works in June to register for the August 23rd. They were reluctant to take my information. I called 19th of August to confirm that I was registered since I hadn't heard anything. I was told in a very abrupt manner in no uncertain terms that only people online would be given that courtesy. The next day, I did a test from another phone to dial, wait for the call, put the message and everything. Only took 55 seconds. They couldn't be bothered to do that. In many calls to other departments, the conversations with staff has been courteous. This response was disturbing. Ironically, the Public Works automated message says they expect to be treated with kindness and respect. The next day, not having the name of the person I talked to, I phoned Public Works, but was refused that information. Over the course of these calls I have made, there have been some quite inane responses like, people can always check our website for other alternatives. We could always email that information. I say, think about what you're saying, because obviously they're not thinking about what they're saying. All this speaks to a mindset that's not inclusive. It says your place is at the back of the bus. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Squire.
Oh, one point. You weren't the only city that failed in the setting up committee. Port Alberni did too, and I can't imagine how many communities all over British Columbia made the same mistake of only asking people that were online to apply to sit on these committees right from the beginning. And there have been way many jurisdictions outside, MLAs, VHA, have made really big mistakes because they don't include people. Thank you for your time.
Yes, we appreciate you flagging that. Thank you. And I remember you and I had a good conversation about this as well. And I believe that city staff have been responsive in planning to make some changes. Ms. Ricard, did you want to speak to what's been happening in the meantime?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have spoken to Mr. Squire directly myself during this summer regarding some of the concerns that have been shared with the committee here today, and have undertaken to follow up on those concerns through development of the guidelines for staff pertaining to informal public engagement opportunities. And those guidelines have been now finalized and distributed to staff across the organization for reference when preparing for future public engagement opportunities. And we sincerely appreciate Mr. Squire contacting the Legislative Services Department earlier this summer and sharing those concerns with us so that we could take next steps in addressing the concerns that were provided.
Thank you for that responsiveness. And I know certainly I've been looking to see if phone numbers are included when we're advertising for things, especially in the newspaper for committee opportunities. You're quite right that it should be more than just a website address. So thank you for that. And I know you mentioned several external organizations that the city's not directly in control of, like the 55 plus games. But I think that your point stands, and many of us are involved in these other organizations and can take your feedback to them. So thank you for that. Were there any questions from the committee? Okay, not seeing any. So thank you, Mr. Squire. We will move into our presentations now. Our first one is on the Inclusion Summer Program and Camp Sensation. And that's going to be introduced by Damon Johnston, our Manager of Recreation Services. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. Always value and appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to the committee about, all the great initiatives that we focus on in community recreation to support accessibility and inclusiveness. I'd like to extend a warm welcome today on the presentation of summer inclusion and accessibility programming. These programs are vital to our community's commitment to ensuring every child, youth, and family has the opportunity to participate fully, feel supported, and belong. we're super excited to hear more about the success, the stories from our summer this year, and really our continued efforts to support accessibility, equity, and inclusion across our recreation and community services. So with that, I'd like to invite Ms. Daly and Ms. Alward to do our presentation today to talk about all the wonderful things that we had going on this summer. Thank you very much.
Let's lower this a bit. Thank you, Damon. Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Daly. I'm usually at the back of the room taking notes, so you might recognize me. This is also my second time presenting to you guys, and I get the pleasure to sharing with you how our summers go. This summer, I had the pleasure of working with Danielle, and she is our Rec 3 leader. Danielle is highly qualified. She also works with the school district as a child, youth, and family support worker. She's brought incredible insight and energy to her role leading the planning and organization for Camp Sensation and our integration program. Perfect. So this presentation is going to focus on our youth and children and youth programming through the summer. We're going to touch on our city plan and integrated action plans, our current programming, some of our community partnerships, the opportunities that we see moving forward, and of course, a conclusion. As you know, the city plan includes several policies and action items that directly support the work we're doing and hope to expand on in the future, especially in our children and youth programming. Two key examples from the integrated action plans include C4-3-15, continue to provide a variety of inclusive and barrier-free activities that support different age groups, including senior and youth. C4-3-16, continue to offer adaptive sport options, working with partners and organizations whenever possible. These policies reinforce our commitment to inclusive recreation and guide and shape our programs and partnerships. All right. One of our key inclusive offerings during this summer includes Camp Sensation and our integrated programming. Camp Sensation runs as a regular camp specifically designed for children and youth with diverse abilities. It accommodates campers who may require special medical or behavioral support and is best suited for those needing one-on-one assistance, help with daily transitions, or a flexible schedule. The integration program is for children aged 6 to 12 years who can participate in small group care within a large camp setting. It supports inclusion while maintaining a structured group environment. Last summer, we piloted both programs side by side to explore how they could operate together. The pilot was successful and well received by family and staff. This year, we aim to expand both programs to run for the entire summer, building on that success. Unfortunately, our request for additional funding, which reached the minister level, was not approved. So we pivoted, and we ran Camp Sensation for 5 weeks, which included 2 weeks of teen programming, and integration ran for the remainder 4 weeks of summer. These programs are fully funded through a partnership with the Ministry of Children and Family Development. And to be eligible for this programming, you need to be a client with MCFD and youth with support needs. Another key offering is our social club, which runs Thursday from 12 to 3, September through June. The program is open to teens and adults and is completely free of charge. What makes this program unique is that participants help plan and lead the activities. The group is slowly growing back to pre-COVID numbers, which is really encouraging and speaks to the value of the program in our community. We continue to offer adaptive skating opportunities through our ongoing partnership with Canucks Autism Network. One of the highlights is the adaptive drop-in hockey program, which continues to be successful and well attended. And I just wanted to add on here some other programs that we tried over the summer. So over the past year. So we tried to explore some new inclusive programming. One example would be Silly Saturdays, which was an open gym program held at Oliver Woods Community Center. It was designed for participants with diverse abilities to enjoy movement, play, social interaction. It was for ages 6 to 12. We saw some come. And then we also had our Wednesday team program, which was modeled after our day program, the Social Club, to give teens a space to connect, socialize, and lead their own group activities. So learning from those, we're going to continue to tweak and refine these offerings based on participation and feedback that some of those participants gave us. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Danielle, and she's going to speak more about our Camp Sensation program.
Hi, everybody. My name is Danielle, and I was a Recreation Leader 3 for Camp Sensation, the integration program this year. It was incredible, and we are so incredibly thankful that MCFD has provided us funding again for this year, so we could do the 5 weeks of Camp Sensation sandwiched between 2 weeks of integration on either side. So this year, we received 126 applications. We were only able to accommodate 115. So unfortunately, 10 to 12 families couldn't be supported due to staff training and experience limitations. We did create a cancellation list though. So at the very beginning, that number was larger. And as you know, schedules change and cancellations happen, I was able to call in the mornings and get people in for a couple days of camp here and there, which the families were really grateful for. The program did grow compared to last year. This was my first year with Camp Sensation, but looking at numbers, last summer we had 85 campers aged 6 to 14 attend Camp Sensation and the integration program. This year, again, 126 applications, we were able to accommodate 115. Due to the limited space, some campers who may have benefited more from being in Camp Sensation were placed in an integration camp, so they were in the mainstream camps, paired with a one-to-one worker. It worked, but if we were able to provide more weeks of Camp Sensation, then the campers would have got more out of having that specialized camp experience. This year, Camp Sensation ran out of École Hammond-based school. It did run out of that school last year as well. We utilized a multi-purpose room and their inclusion room. So we had lots of wonderful space, lots of natural lights on the ground floor. We were able to bring a lot of our tools in as well as use some of the tools that the school had for their inclusion programs. For transportation, we were unable to use the school district buses this year. Last year, that is what we did. So this year, we partnered with a company from the Cowichan Valley. Our bus driver was fantastic. He was always on time, and the kids absolutely loved him. Some of our trips that we attended were to Rathtrevor Beach. We went to the Forest Discovery Center in Duncan. We went swimming we went to Bevan. We went to the Nanaimo Aquatic Center. We went to Westwood Lake a few times. We went to the Wildlife Recovery Center, which was very, very fun. Our bus driver joined us for one of those outings too, and that was really cool too, to kind of bridge that gap and build relationship throughout the week. We went to Transfer Beach for one of our out trips, which I think, after talking to the leaders, was one of our favorite out trips, just because we have the option to go to the park. There's also a covered picnic area where we can park our stuff, so the whole camp can kind of be in a separate area, as well as have the water park and the beach as well. And I believe they have the wheelchair ramp down to the beach, so that was really awesome. So all of our out trips were just fantastic, and the kiddos loved going out. And we were able to, with our bus driver, he would stick around. So if any of our campers ever got overwhelmed or they were kind of feeling like they needed a break, there was always the opportunity to go sit on the bus and hang out. He would park in a shaded area. It was nice and cool. We'd crack the windows, get the fresh air in there, and our leaders would kind of come and go as the campers need. For staff training, we did have a few team sessions that were focused on self-regulation, self-care for the leaders, and co-regulation, how important it is that we maintain a balanced energy. So when we're coming up with those bigger behaviors, that we're able to support them in an adequate and successful way. And then also different strategies on how to navigate challenging behaviors, such as eloping or hands-on behavior. How can we redirect without causing those shame and blame and singling people out? And just making sure that, like, if there is a bigger behavior, like, they feel, like when you make a mistake, you feel a sense of embarrassment. So just maintaining the dignity of the children and being like, hey, like, it's okay, we all make mistakes, like, let's try this again, kind of thing. We were also able to do this by sharing best practices. We sat at a round table and, kind of spitballed and shared ideas and how we can best approach working with our unique kiddos this summer. We were lucky. We had Denny from the Child Development Center, who is a child and youth care worker there, come, and she provided training on how to support youth with diverse abilities. That's something that our leaders said that they lacked last year, so we were able to address that this year. And Denny was fantastic, and I think that the 2 teen weeks that we had this year, they were exceptional. Like, it was so wonderful. Most staff were returning this year, which was a strength. So a lot of our training that we did, we touched on the baseline training, but more of it was like, okay, how can we build and how can we grow? Because a lot of it was just kind of reiterated. So like I said, like when we were sitting around and kind of sharing shared experiences and ideas, that was more building on the building blocks that were built last year during training sessions. There are a few identified areas that we would like more training for next year, mainly focused on safety of the kids and safety of the leaders. How do the leaders address those bigger behaviors, the violent behaviors, and how can they keep themselves safe, the rest of the camp safe, and the camper themselves? And then we want to address more about communication. How can we support those nonverbal kiddos, the kiddos that utilize AAC devices, which are augmented and alternative communication devices? How can we, so when someone comes with an AAC and they're trying to use it or they're learning to use it, the leaders can help. Like I'm lucky I have a background being an SLP assistant, so I was kind of teaching the leaders as we went how to use the AAC devices. But I think it would be a huge benefit to have somebody come in, an SLP come and talk about how to use the devices. In terms of registration barriers, all applications that were mailed, there was a mailing strike during the time that our applications were mailed in. So a lot of our families experienced delay. Our applications come on a first come, first served basis. So that means they sent in their application for mail and they ended up way down on the list, which is really, really unfortunate due to the mailing strike. It's just how the cookie crumbled. You can also bring your application to a Parks and Recreation site. But that's not accessible for all families. There were also, based on feedback, we made all applications available, for pickup at all the recreation facilities. So they could go to any facility, go pick it up, bring it back. But again, taking it back to the rec site was a barrier for some families, so they mailed it. And then the strike happened. Unfortunately, we cannot offer online applications, and this is due to an MCFD restriction. So we have explored it with them, and they have basically just shut us down in terms of an online portal. However, parent surveys, they all said that they found the registration process fairly accessible. There was only a few families that did see barriers and did have some feedback to say. Most of them, it was all positive feedback though, which was really nice to hear. In terms of other barriers in regards to Camp Sensation and the integration program, Some families attended camps. So, okay, some of our campers, they come for an integration week. So we offer 1 week services. They'll come to a week of sensation or they'll come to a week of integration. That's it. That's all that's provided through MCFD. They'll register for other camps so they can have camps all summer long, but they don't have an integration worker. This can create some really unsafe situations for the camper, for the leaders, and for the other camps too. Yeah, so that was a barrier that we're finding, is that like the families want more time and we just don't have more time to give them without the additional funding. Parents, yeah, they were added to a cancellation list if they expressed that they wanted more time, because I was like, yeah, definitely, like I'll try and get you. If we have anyone that cancels, I'm not gonna say no to camp, right? So I was able to fill in a few people here and there, but again, the list was so long that I was not able to hit every person on the list. Another barrier is, again, only children with active social workers. If you don't have an active social worker, if you don't have a social worker that's on the ball, the kids aren't receiving the application or notification that they can register for camp. So that is a big barrier, in my opinion. And also location. Hammond Bay is a beautiful school. However, it is located in the worst spot. It's accessible for some families, but speaking to the families, I had one family and they would come from Harewood and they take public transit. So imagine 4 children all on the spectrum. You have to get them up at 6 a.m. for a 2-hour bus ride all the way to the middle of Hammond Bay. That's your option. Or you pay $80 a day for a taxi. $80 a day times 5. And you have to pay for the van because you have 4 children. So that was definitely an issue. I had multiple families talk to me this year about moving the location of Camp Sensation. So we've kind of been in the talks that we're thinking about maybe going to a different school, such as like Georgia Avenue, because they also have a really wonderful inclusion room that we could use. And then, yeah, the poor self-service. Families are trying to contact me, early pickup. If there's an emergency, there's no cell phone service in Hammond Bay. I was utilizing the landline to call the families in the morning, or if I had to get a hold of Amanda, but otherwise, there's no communication. So that wasn't great either. But yeah, I think with them exploring a move to a different school, that would resolve a lot of our issues. Thank you.
And that moving locations, that actually was one of the things that came up in the workshop and feedback that we received. We'll just kind of go over some pictures. Do you want to speak to some of these? Just a little brief where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start at the Wildlife Recovery Center, where my friend Ben is standing with one of our campers there. They're in front of the turtle garden. In the middle there, that's me choosing away. We're at Butterfly World there. To the right, again, at the Wildlife Recovery Center, having a blast. The chalk, you should have seen outside Hammond Bay School, the mosaic of art that was created. It was so wonderful. And then it rained, and it was so sad. But then we got to make it again, so it was all right. But so we spent a lot of time outside at Hammond Bay, which is a plus to the location. Like, it is right beside Neck Point Park, and we got to utilize the parks multiple times a week, and the kids loved walking around and exploring the different beaches and the little ferry homes, and yeah. We had lots of sensory tools. So my friend over in the blue there, he's throwing one of those, like, I use it as a breathing tool for some kids, and you go, but he was like chucking it up in the air. It looked really cool because it would like shrink in the air and it would come back when he would catch it. We have puzzles. You can see we have like different types of seating kind of in the back there. There's beanbag chairs and like a mini table and wobbly stools, and yeah, more Neck Point. My leaders have so much fun at Neck Point. In the middle there, that's when we're doing when you put Mentos and Coke and it explodes. The kids love that. We did 2 rounds. We did that one, and then one of my leaders, we did like the rocket ship version, where you like huck it onto the ground, and I let someone else do that. I didn't want the rocket coming back to get me. And then finally, the bubbles. We had a concert going on in that picture. You can see I'm kind of in the corner, like dancing away. That camper in particular, she loves to sing. So what we did at Camp Sensation is we really tailored the week and the activities while at Hammond Bay to the interests of the kids. And this week we had a really musical crew, and we had concerts every single day. We would have big dance groups, and we would just literally just have a party in one side, but then we would have a quiet room for the others that didn't want to party, but 90% of them wanted to party. And that's actually us skating. Yeah, we went skating, and that's actually us.
And then these are just some photos of our crew at the social club. Lots of different outings with them. They're usually at Bevan. They do some crafts, a lot of themes, birthdays. There was bowling last year. Yeah, we did a couple fun things. All right, so some partnerships. As we mentioned, Ministry of Children and Family Development. It's been a long-standing partnership with the City of Nanaimo, providing us all of our grant funding to run Camp Sensation and integration programs. We also partner with Canucks Autism Network. It's an ongoing arena through our arena programming and our swimming programs that are tailored for neurodiverse participants. And then our partnership, again, with the school district, where we've partnered with the Space for Hammond Bay School, as well as some other joint efforts to support inclusive programming and our community school connections. So moving forward, some opportunities that we see: inclusive programming design, so continuing to develop programs that are accessible and welcoming to all participants with the focus on neurodiversity and diverse abilities. So again, tweaking some of those programs that we've tried. Our Leisure Buddy program, it's in the exploratory phase. Again, we're looking at a peer support model to enhance social inclusion and participation in our recreation programs, for example, swimming lessons. Strengthen community relationships, so building some deeper connections with our families, our schools, our partnered organizations to support those shared goals and community well-being. Applying for additional funding, so identifying some new grant opportunities to expand programming and support staffing needs. The workshop updates, so you guys did the workshop in the spring. The feedback has been valuable in shaping future direction and ensuring our programs remain responsive and inclusive. We're currently exploring several ideas that came out of the workshop with the goal of enhancing and offering and better meeting the needs of those participants. And in conclusion, our partnership with MCFD, Canucks Autism Network, and the school district continue to strengthen inclusive recreation. New initiatives like Camp Sensation and the Exploratory Leisure Buddy program show strong potential for growth. We're committed to improving program design, building community connections, and exploring new ideas, many inspired by the recent workshop feedback. Thank you for your continued support and collaboration.
And thank you so much for that awesome presentation and for all the great work this summer. It looks like it was a lot of fun and obviously super meaningful, not only to the participants, but the people who put it on. So that's really cool to see. Thank you. Are there any questions from committee members? Sean?
Thanks for doing that. I want to just start by saying that as a parent of a kid with a developmental intellectual disability who's also autistic, we have always loved Camp Sensation. It's been a big part of our life, and we're glad to see it continue. Just in terms of when we talk about inclusion, they're generally like when we talk about it sort of in the disability sector or in the inclusion sector, we talk about stages of inclusion, which is exclusion, which is no inclusion at all. So think institutionalization is the worst form of inclusion. And then it goes from exclusion to segregation to inclusion to belonging, where Camp Sensation is a wonderful, wonderful camp, but it is a segregated camp where we're essentially saying, take all the people with disabilities, put them separate from everybody else. So wherever we can allocate resources to integration, that is a step forward that really helps not just the individuals, it helps the future individuals when we're talking in the adult sector about more inclusion, more belonging and stuff like that. So we're setting the stage early that with the right supports, everyone can participate in everything. So I think investment in integration, I know it's hard and there are no resources for anybody right now. So that's obviously a barrier, but anytime we can invest in that, that's always preferred over more investment in segregation because that keeps the movement stagnant. And the other thing I just wanted to point out that in terms of the safety, that's something we deal with all the time at NACL. I don't know if CDC does it, but we learn and practice something called CIVA, which is supporting individuals through valued attachments. It's exactly what you're talking about, which is how to keep yourself safe, how to support other people who are maybe hurting themselves. We are trainers in the community, so if that's something that comes up, we can either help connect the city with the people that teach that program. It's 2 days and it's really useful, not just in understanding the physicality of staying safe, but understanding behavior supports, when to walk away, when to let people have their space, and understanding why people do things. Yeah, it's 2 days and really effective, so we can connect with, help you connect with those trainers. But I think, yeah, and then when we think about inclusive program design, just thinking about what we mean by that. Do we mean segregated program design? Do we mean belonging? Because the ideal in disability is that we don't need anything, that I lose my job, that everyone who works in this sector is not needed and we can move on to other stuff. Because everything works perfectly, the community supports themselves and each other, and we're not... I think I'll be fine for a while, but I think that's the goal. So then beyond that, we're just thinking, how can we be more inclusive? How can we allocate resources? Because there's one Camp Sensation and 5,000 other camps that all youth get to participate in. So how do we enhance supports in those situations so that we broaden the range of options available to our people with disabilities so that they can experience the full enjoyment of everything that NIMO has to offer. Thank you.
Thanks. I see questions from Nicole and then Sarah and Jocelyn.
Okay, so I'm going to try not to repeat things that I put in the workshop last spring. My biggest question is there a plan for more inclusion of children and youth who need physical support, physical care? Because I know that these children and youth are on MCFD's caseload, but they are not included, except the very last photo. I'm not sure if that was from Sensation.
Yes,
there were
it was.
no, the other ones did not have pictures of people using mobility devices. And so those kids and youth are often not included, even in, say, adapted hockey and things like that. And so I know the reasons why they weren't able, like toileting and such, but is there plans for the future for those children and youth?
Sure. So, do you want me? Go ahead.
Great, through the chair, and thank you. I would answer that by saying plans are underway. I think the Recreation and Culture Management team has met since we had the great workshop back in May. A program like that's going to require a lot of planning, additional resources, including financial support, obviously human resources to make that happen. So stay tuned for, I think, more of a fulsome report and plan in 2026, but we certainly recognize that that's a major need and a gap that we have currently in our program delivery.
And I think that your comment about not Hammond Bay, not just from a geographic point of view, but from a physical access, a lot of the things like an accessible playground already exist at George Avenue. A lift already exists in many of the schools not in Hammond Bay. It could also be at any of the pools, because the city has done a really good job of creating change facilities for all people who have physical needs in the recreation facilities. So that would be the other place that you could leverage that. But there wouldn't be a playground. So Georgia, that would be my vote.
Sarah?
Thank you. First of all, I just really wanted to say how much I appreciated that you were kind of getting ahead of a lot of my questions when you were self-identifying the barriers and some of the opportunities for improvement. I don't want you to think that as an autism mom, I appreciate so much what you guys are doing. I know you're striving for excellence, and I know I'm so glad to hear it was such a good summer. So please don't take my questions in a critical way. I'm just, we're always looking for ways to improve. So my first question is, number one, so thrilled to hear about the training that you offered to the leaders. I'm just wondering how much training was offered, like how many hours, and do you anticipate being able to lengthen that if you're going to be adding a safety component in the future? And I have another question after that.
Through the chair. So we offered an additional 20 hours. So all of our summer staff get 20 hours of training. So we have our general city summer staff training, and then we did an additional 20 hours for our, sorry, not 20 hours. It was, I believe it was actually 10 hours. Sorry, doubled up there. So we did 10 hours of extra additional training with the group. And definitely, I think we would increase those hours, provided the availability of the staff prior to the summer.
Okay, that's great to hear. I did hear from a few other autism parents. I just happened to have coffee with one this morning whose kids attended the camp, and they did indicate that sometimes the general youth and inexperience can show through a little. But it does sound like you're doing a great job of equipping them, and at least trying to equip them. So thank you. My other question is pertaining to the fact that MCFD, effective a few months ago, autistic children in Nanaimo are no longer automatically assigned to a social worker, which was always in the past, as soon as your child had an autism diagnosis, you were assigned a social worker because you had funding. Starting a few months ago, that's no longer the case. And so there's going to be basically every newly diagnosed autistic child will be without a social worker unless their family specifically requests one. So is this going to leave a big cohort of people unaware of Camp Sensation for next year and in future years?
Through the chair. I was actually unaware of that. And we have a meeting coming up with our partners at MCFD in October. So I think that's something that we'll probably need to address. And again, we'll also be looking at, because there are, so many other kids out there that could use the support that already are not able to come to our programming. So overall, we'd like to somehow expand that programming so that those kids that already don't have a social worker, and then, with these new changes, how are we able to support those kids as well? So it's definitely something that I think we're trying to expand and try to look at how can we, offer that extra for those kids.
Okay, well, I'm glad I was able to flag it for you. Thank you.
And did you want to ask your second question, Sarah?
That was my second question.
Pardon me. Sorry, lost count. Two, okay. Apparently. Jocelyn.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the presentation. I am not a parent, but I had one question about the location transportation question. It's something that in my organization's activities, we struggle with venue choice for physical accessibility and also accessibility for people who don't have vehicles. And that is a huge, huge, huge barrier. And I really would strongly urge you to, through, either moving or getting transportation. I'm wondering if you've considered Handy Dart or your bus driver that you found so helpful, if that could be extended. Because maybe it's different for me because, 8 years ago I came from Vancouver where there were many, many options, but Nanaimo is very car centric. And to have things on our very stretched out city, way so far away, and I live in Harewood as well, like that is quite literally a bridge too far for a lot of people, and I know it's not for lack of trying, but it's definitely for lack of funding probably. But I just urge you to consider some alternatives so that the folks who are already struggling enough that they don't have a vehicle aren't completely left out.
Through the chair. I will just comment, we did actually reach out to Handy Dart, and they had actually said that because they have their daily routines already with some of their clients, that they wouldn't be able to help us out on that side of things. So unfortunately that wasn't an option for us. The other thing, you just sparked an idea. We could, if we weren't able to change locations, even having that bus driver, if we could pick designated areas of drop off where we could then maybe have an integration leader meeting them there and then drive them to Hammond Bay after that and kind of be their buddy on the bus to get to the home base and back. So that could maybe be an option for next year as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Richard?
I definitely I definitely would second that, like having a buddy on the bus type thing. In previous jobs, I've done something similar, so that would be great to possibly offer, and it gives people more one-on-one time with people on the bus. When the ministry had denied the online registration, at what time was that? Was that before the strike had happened or after?
Sure, through the chair. It was before the strike.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had met in October and again in January. And just, the way everybody's schedules worked out, we did approach them to go online. Unfortunately, I don't want to say their system's old school, but it's not set up. And so they weren't comfortable moving to an online process. They did agree with having the applications at our facilities so that people could pick up, which I think that actually worked really well for some of those families. And I think that's why we saw an increase of applicants coming in because of that. And I would still love to push to move it online.
So, sorry for follow-up, but how many families were possibly affected by the mail strike?
I'm not 100% sure on how many.
Okay. I think that would also be a good identifier for the ministry in creating an argument for where having one snail mail option definitely affects people from a marginalized population much more easily. Yeah.
Thank you, Richard. I see a question from Andrea and then Sean, and then thank you.
Thanks. So just in terms of the families that were registered last year, was there comparative data as to who was able to come this year? Is that available?
Through the chair. So we had a lot of repeat kiddos that came. And then this year we had a couple new ones. I would say probably over 50% are returning kids. We had a really big increase of teen applications come through this year. So that was definitely a little bit different for us. So that's kind of all I have.
And if I can follow up just in terms of getting that application out, because I'm assuming it goes out before the end of the school year, would the partnered school districts be a mechanism to get that application out?
Yeah, through the chair. I actually did have some teachers or support workers with the school reach out on behalf of some of those families asking for it. And in those cases, I emailed the application to them so that they could get it to those families. So it's definitely an option. As long as MCFD is okay with that, I think that's definitely an option. Thanks.
Sean?
Yeah, just a consideration around transportation. Handy Dart is a going concern. I think, people at NACL have been fighting that battle for as long as I've been here, and I think that question has come forward more times than I have fingers. But I do think that there may be an opportunity to partner with organizations that have transport vehicles like NACL or Claytree that have buses and Class 4 drivers, when typically we might need them less during the summer because there's people away. And so if the city wants to increase its transportation support, there may be an opportunity to partner with people in the community who have buses with lifts often and Class 4 drivers available to move people around. As long as it's done in advance, that may be a way to alleviate some of that stress.
Thank you for that. And thank you, everyone, for the questions. And thank you so much for the presentation and for all of your work. That's really awesome to see. And thank you to the committee for the feedback. And we're going to move into our next presentation, which is on the Westwood Lake Park Inclusive Amenity Improvements. And this is going to be introduced by Darcy Osborne, our Director of Parks, Recreation, and Culture. And yes, it is being deferred to Charlotte, our General Manager of Parks, Recreation and Culture.
Thanks, Councillor Rees.
Sorry.
I am the Deputy Director of Parks and Natural Areas.
Deputy Director of Parks and Natural Areas. There we go.
It's a long one. It's a pleasure to be here as always. Good evening, committee. And this item really needs little to no introduction. In fact, I'm going to be very lazy and I'm going to use someone else's words to introduce this one. So, received from a member of the public just recently. I am absolutely thrilled about the new accessible washrooms and change rooms at Westwood Lake. Thank you for making the NIMO so inclusion-oriented and diversity embracing. People are a buzz. The advisory committee should be commended. Thanks a million times over. So Kirsty McDonald, our Manager of Parks Operations, is here with a presentation to celebrate the updates at the park and the many ways that this committee has driven that success.
We love to hear that. That's so cool. Thank you so much for that feedback. I see little hearts coming up from our online participants. I've never seen that before, so heck yes. Thank you for those. Oh, they're sparkly too? What? Okay. Thanks for being here, Kirsty.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here to celebrate with you. The purpose of the presentation is really to highlight all the wonderful ways this committee has provided feedback.
Is that mic on? I'm just want to make sure. I don't know. Thank you.
The purpose of my presentation is to celebrate all the ways this committee has provided feedback that really has changed our parks and open spaces, with the example being at Westwood Lake Park. And we really want to close that feedback loop and show you how you have made that difference. So starting around 2019, 2020, there was the very first ACAI committee and its members provided feedback through Reimagine Nanaimo. And through that process, we heard a lot of input regarding inclusive and equitable parks and open spaces. We heard a lot of input around the need for inclusive and gender-neutral washrooms throughout our community, and also the need for adult changing stations. And all of those ideas are very much reflected in the process and the design work and how it's been realized at Westwood Lake Park. Phase 1 of the project focused 2021-ish on the entrance and the parking lot at First Beach off Westwood Road. And in the picture on the left, lower left, it shows accessible parking stalls at First Beach. There are actually 8 of those, and the previous ACAI committee had provided feedback around the design of accessible parking stalls and the fact that they should be both rear and front loading. And so these are the first in parks that are both rear and front loading. And also waterfront access and really providing waterfront access, both freshwater and ocean access, has been a #1 theme in the community for years. However, as you can see in the top picture, there is a grand entrance that is key to First Beach. It's right in the middle, and it's wide, and it's open to everybody. And it allows everyone, regardless of their abilities, to get down to the beach. And really that access to all in the water is a key feature that is very prevalent in Phase 1, and I just wanted to highlight that. So Phase 2 is the work that has just recently been completed and opened up in the summer. And if you haven't been there yet, I'm going to walk you through a number of photos that, again, hit on the feedback and the clarity that you provided through the design process and how it's been realized on site. So these pictures on the screen highlight the facilities, the built facilities that are now just accessed off Westwood Road in that parking lot. You can see the wave integrated into the washroom facilities. And there's a large shade shelter that comes off of the built facilities, and it really provides a meet here area and an opportunity for everyone to have an escape from the sun. Attached to that are 2 universal washrooms, and they are fully meeting Rick Hansen standards, and they are one of the key things that we heard through this committee in the later stages of the design for Phase 2 was the need for 2 accessible and inclusive washrooms, and so that is what has been delivered on site. These photos highlight the adult changing station that is in one of the 2 washrooms, with 2 photos on the left and the center, and also some of the signage and key features like emergency buttons that are, again, meeting the Rick Hansen certification for facilities. Another key theme through the feedback was regarding the surfaces, the ground plane surfaces that are experienced by people with different mobility issues and also navigated by people with visual impairments. And you can see there's a variety of surface types on site. There's pavers, and there's also asphalt and various surfaces that are wood. But Haley, who is featured on the left here, she came to our grand opening and she navigated all the spaces with her wheelchair. And she reported that she didn't have, it was one of the few sites she said she's been to with no bumps. Her wheels didn't get caught at all as she navigated the different surface types. And we're really hoping that is what everyone is finding. We're very intentional in both the design and the detailed construction to make sure there's no joints or as minimal joint as possible in the pavers so that there is a smooth surface. Although it's beautiful, it feels like it's one ground plane, and that there are options. There's limited surfaces in all the different surface types, really, or limited joints where you can catch your tires, catch the edge of your cane, or experience bumps or any tripping hazards. So that's one thing that's been very intentional throughout the design process. Yet it looks beautiful, as you can see from the picture on the right. And these photos all highlight the beach access and how not only did Phase 2 of the design double the size of the beach, but it also provided access to all to the beach. Again, Haley is going down a Moby mat on the right that was installed late spring, and it flows off that grand ramp that you can see in the middle photo. So it's right in the central area, but everyone can get down to the beach and also to the water's edge. And then, again, that ramp is also shown on the left. On the edge of the ramp is a number of contrasting colors and surface types to, again, help highlight the edges for anyone with mobility or visual impairments. And there's quite a robust handrail system along as well to help navigate. Another key feature that you reviewed quite recently is related to signage. And this park has become a pilot for us, trying a number of new signage standards, including the use of Braille, which to my knowledge, we haven't done in our parks and open spaces before. So there's a lot of relief, tactile relief on the signage, as well as the integration of Braille. There's also been high color contrast considered, and we haven't had a lot of feedback from users who have had vision impairments at the site, but the goal was that the blue color was really legible against the forest background, and you can see that in the picture on the right, and that the white would pop for visual relief. And that is also echoed in the signage that's on the building facade. And also the heights, the various heights of the positioning of the sign are so that somebody in a chair will see it as well as somebody that's walking, and that it's in that cone of vision for all users, no matter how they're navigating the space. And then lastly, it's not pictured on the slide, but there are QR codes also integrated into a lot of the signage, and so you can scan your QR code and hear a recording of the information that's also on the sign. And again, it's the first time we've used that I'm aware of in a city facility, and they might not be perfect, but we have tried to integrate that, and we'd love more feedback. Right now, there's some music playing in the background in some of the recordings, and we weren't sure how that would play out if you have a hearing impairment, but we want to get it right. So it's something that's in place there, and we hope to replicate this in other parks and open spaces over time. At Westwood Lake, we also have integrated a variety of seating types. You can see on the left, there are round tables and non-traditional seating areas where you can wheel right up and hopefully feel comfortable. Also, on the backless benches, you can look both towards the building or towards the ocean, not the ocean, the lake itself, the water. So there's a variety of ways you can use those. And then also along the decking, you'll notice that there's different angles of repose, I guess, on backrests, with the hope that people can feel comfortable in many ways. Whether you're in the middle of the action or on the side of it, there's ways you can sit. Again, we'd love to hear more feedback on how these are working out, but the goal was to provide a variety of spaces that could be used by different ages and abilities. I'm not sure how, if somebody with mobility issues was to sit down without handrails on that decking, for instance, are there different options for them to get back up, or are there more aids required? But these are things that we can tweak as the space is enjoyed, and we hear feedback. And there's still more work to do, so we're going to be coming back to this committee more in the future. There's definitely the need, and we've heard it through the committee before, to integrate the park access more with transit. And the hope is that we can continue to work with the RDN to do so, as well as create a safer sidewalk option along Westwood Road to connect the bus stop, unless it changes with the park. We also have heard through this committee that there's a need, and this was through some priority discussions that we had last year, for an accessibility audit on some of the trails around Westwood Lake Park. And we very much look forward to working with the committee and our Rick Hansen auditor on that process still. And we also have more design work to do at Westwood Lake Park. We hope to do more phases, and at the moment, the goal would be to integrate more shelter or more shade and shelters into what's existing, provide more dock access that's accessible at First Beach, and also look behind integrate the old washroom building and the space behind it into the new amenities, and create better use of that space that's tucked in behind the lake and the washroom building. So we hope if council agrees and supports it through capital dollars, to be able to come to you in the future, looking for more feedback for future work at Westwood Lake Park. And really hope that through us bringing projects in our parks and open spaces to the committee through a similar process, that we can continue to work together to make our public spaces more accessible and comfortable for all. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I see a question from Jocelyn and then Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you so much for the presentation. It is a thrill to me to see this, because this is the biggest thing that when I first moved here, Reimagine Nanaimo was just getting going, and I participated in some of those sessions, and to see not just better bathrooms, but to see a lot of our input considered around 2 accessible stalls and a changing place as well. Like, it's just a thrill, and it's so beautiful, I have to say. Like, I haven't been in person yet, but I love how it looks as well. And maybe others can identify with the fact that a lot of things people can just, accessible design isn't always beautiful. Sometimes it's a bit institutional, and so I'm excited that it is incorporated so nicely in the overall design, and makes me want to go. I mean, I always want to go to Westwood, but even more. The one thing you kind of mentioned it, so I'll just try and be really brief. It really, from the photos, needs some shade, especially over the tables. I was just in Australia while the last meeting was happening, and every time I go, I'm struck by how creative and smart they are with shade, permanent shade in the shape of sails that offer sort of a vertical shade as well as a horizontal shade. And a lot of people with disabilities have autonomic dysfunction as well, which means we aren't always able to cool our bodies effectively, which makes it harder for us to be in summer kind of hot weather areas, like by the beach, by the lake. And I wonder, I know my organization has received funding for things like that related to climate resilience, and perhaps the city can access funds related to climate resilience in its parks, related to shade as well, because I think particularly the seating areas that are the little round tables and the logs, sort of square seating, will be really hard to sit at, especially if that table is metal, if it has no shade. But I have to really applaud the format of those seating areas that have sort of one side for seating and then another side for a stroller or a wheelchair, or a little cargo wagon or whatever, and that there is shade. I'm really excited about that. Like, in general, I just wish the shade was in the places people are likely to sit down. Anyway, I'm thrilled to see the photos, and we'll have comments once I've actually been there, but it's been a great experience to be part of your design journey, I guess. So thanks.
Thank you. Through the chair to Jocelyn, just to respond to the shade item, that is the item where we fell short on what was planned. We haven't delivered shade for this year, but I am pleased to say that we've got funds in the budget for next year to deliver shade at the park. So it'll be 1 year late, but we'll have some for you.
Thank you. I have a speakers list. Councillor Armstrong, then Richard, Sean, and then Bay.
I have 2 questions. Okay, so one of the questions that was sent to me was there's a lot of people concerned about the wood chips. Kids have been getting splinters and stuff. Has there been any talk about that? That was posted on Facebook sites, and people were quite concerned about the wood chips.
Through the chair, the wood chips that are at Second Beach and the new playground at Second Beach are CSA compliant, and they're something that we have in all of our, most of our parks, most of our playgrounds. To my knowledge, they should be splinter-free. So if there is an issue, we haven't heard of it, but if there is, they're supposed to be from a pine and fir-only facility, and the guarantee that when we buy it, it comes with, under CSA, is that it wouldn't give splinters. So what happens with the wood fiber is it compacts with rain and use, and it becomes a bit of a springy mat. And the reason we choose that over other surfaces is that it has a lower head injury capability index, so you're much less likely to get a head injury if you fall on it. Plus, it is a more accessible surface. The only more accessible surface is poured-in-place rubber, and that is very expensive and out of the reach, typically for our budgets.
Thank you. Yeah, and then the other thing was there was 50 comments on the poor design of the parking lot, and I know that I did forward this because the ambulance are very concerned about it, because it said it's taking them an extra 5 to 6 minutes, which when a drowning can be lengthy time. And they were wondering, like, when we are doing more designs, if they could be consulted, because they have not been consulted on any of this, and they're quite concerned about that because response time is critical. And I also heard from some fire truck drivers too that it's just too tight. So I think that's something we need to look at. And I know that there's going to be a motion coming to council that all of these designs go to a committee based on police, fire, and ambulance, not just fire. Thanks. But that was just, like I said, I read there were 60 comments concerned about the parking. So just wanted to throw that out. Thanks.
Thank you. Through the chair, thank you for providing that feedback, Councillor Armstrong. We did look at turning radiuses and other emergency access through the design process, but maybe where we've fallen short is communicating that back and actually showing which bollards were expected to be removed or downed in order to access that, because our lifeguards actually gave that key feedback as for the response time for a potential drowning to have emergency access there. So I think that's something that maybe we could do better at communicating and doing a walking tour with them on how to best navigate that. But I hear what you're saying about future designs as well.
Yeah, I just want to follow up with that because you guys use computers, which are not real life. You're not taking into effect driver error. You're not taking into effect sometimes they can't swing the way you think they can swing because of what's going on in the back when people are standing working on somebody. So I've had this discussion with the engineering department, and I know when we were looking at the designs, the truckers were very, very upset because you're only using computer-based stuff, not real-life experience, and that's where I would really, I'm going to be making the motion to make sure that it goes back like other communities do, so that the people that are actually driving have a say in it. Thanks.
Richard.
This whole project has definitely brought me joy, so thank you very much for providing all this improvement. I am curious when it comes to the shade, throwing shade, that we also look at like rain cover and such too. That way this space can be used more than just the summer times and the shoulder seasons a little bit more. Because yeah, the rain cover situation can then help for say larger groups wanting to have a reception or something at the park in early spring or late fall, for instance. And second to that, when it comes to the trails around Westwood, one thing that I'm really curious about is signage around the trails other than the main one that loops around, because I know there are more trails that kind of extend further away from Westwood.
Through the chair, yes, we hope to expand our wayfinding and the accessible signage that you see at First Beach throughout the park. We're in a pretty exciting position right now with our partner, the Regional District of Nanaimo, that actually owns the adjacent property to us, and then up to Mount Benson as well. So there are trails that you can actually take from this new parking area and beach all the way to the top of Mount Benson through different jurisdictions. Mm-hmm. And we want to make sure that you can wayfind from the parking lot to do all of that between different ownership types. So we do hope to add more accessible signage throughout the loop. And I think that'll come up through this audit as well. This audit process, wayfinding is a particular lens that you use as part of that audit process. Yeah. But also working with our partners so that it's really clear when you change, how you navigate, and then how the trails work between all these different parcels and different parks.
that integration sounds like it's going to be a really key improvement, because I know there's a lot of running groups that use that space too. So yeah, thank you very much. I think the only other time that QR codes have been used in city parks was like an art installation in Bowen, and that's it. So cool.
Thank you. Bay?
Hello. I just have a few things. A question about the signage. I noticed there were some maps. Are those also in relief and tactile for people?
Yes, they are. Through the chair, yes, they are. So it was, I think there's the one key map right now, and we again hope to replicate in a few key locations throughout the park so that you can feel your way around, and they will be, we're hoping that they're really legible. We've started with this one prototype though. It's a new process, a new company for us, and a new way of communicating. So again, welcome feedback as people are using them and finding their way or getting lost. Please let us know.
Hey, I noticed you mentioned armrests on those wooden benches. I just wanted to encourage not putting them everywhere, because they can actually make it more difficult to move onto and off of the benches, or not accommodate all body sizes. But I also wanted to touch on the buses. You mentioned that you've been in contact with RDN Transit. Have you guys been able to negotiate a better bus stop that is up the hill instead of that large curved hill?
Do you want to?
Through the chair to Bay, this is something we're still working on, in short. We have had some conversations, and there may be interest from the RDN in a seasonal bus stop. Nothing permanent at this time, and we're hoping to deliver that for next year, but nothing confirmed yet.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Nicole?
I really loved Westwood. We were up there for the grand opening. A couple of questions that came up. We had outdoor play day there, and so a couple of questions that came from the people I was speaking with. One is that Moby mat staying in place 12 months of the year, or is it going to have to come out seasonally like the ones at the ocean?
Through the chair, that's a really good question. We haven't made that decision yet. However, last year, the committee did provide feedback that we should keep all our Moby mats seasonally. We've actually had some challenges with that over the winter, especially the ones that are at the ocean. I think the lake locations, it's much easier to accommodate that all year round. There's a lot of erosion and additional inspections, especially in the winter tides, that there can be more risk with the Moby mats at the oceans over the winter months. So that, and they also break down quicker, a lot quicker, and we have to replace them a lot quicker with more exposure, especially in the winter months. So that's something that I actually was planning on bringing back to the committee, just to let you know at a future date what the, I guess, operational impacts are of keeping them, and whether or not that's something that the community is valuing and it's worth doing or not. But I think this one could stay up all year, but we haven't actually talked about that yet. It's only been in 2 months, and we haven't. Yeah, I think this one could definitely stay in all year round, though. And I do know that there's a trend for all year round swimming, and Westwood Lake is one of those areas that happens.
Okay. I think people will be happy to hear that. Also noting that as the water level dropped, that Moby mat no longer reaches the water. And I think that's just climate change or whatever it is. But that brings up the storage and the provision of equipment that people could then wheel into the water. So there is still the concrete ramp that could go in, that somebody could wheel down. And I knew that the lifeguards, when they're there, have a water wheelchair accessible that you can pull out. And but it didn't roll well enough down even the Moby mat for me. So I'm wondering, is there still a hope of using the old washroom building as storage and getting some proper beach wheelchairs so people can access the water?
Through the chair, yes, there is. So this next phase of design, where we look at repurposing the old washroom building, very much we were expecting to have community storage with adaptive equipment as part of that plan. That is something that was mentioned many times through Reimagine and NIMO feedback as well with trail riders. So I think both for the beach and potentially the trail system, that is a potential use for sure. And the Moby mats, we can definitely extend or reposition. We can buy an extra length and add it in. The lake itself is actually a human-made lake, and it's a dam. So it's a very controlled, it's controlled many times throughout all year, but we release water many times throughout the year into the Millstone River system. So it will fill up again, and it's monitored, but yes, when we bought it in June, I think we bought a 50-foot length, and that there was a lot of warm, dry days in the summer, right? So we released a lot of water into the Millstone River system to support fish. And so we need to buy an extension.
Sean.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just want to, municipalities can see accessibility as either a burden or an opportunity, and I'm really grateful that the city takes the latter chance here. And, there was a lot of stuff that we asked for that we knew was going to cost extra money. And so I'm really grateful to the city for taking that opportunity and doing something really terrific. Just following up about the shade. So often people, in addition to the reasons Jocelyn pointed out, also many people with disabilities have co-occurring mental health conditions. Often that comes with SRIs. SSRIs are a contributor to heat stroke. So when you're on an SSRI, you're more likely to suffer heat exhaustion and heat stroke. And so the shade is great. Are there, outside of the washrooms, external water filling stations? There are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, through the chair, there is. There's one bottle filler. It kind of became a foot wash, bottle filler, and water fountain over the summer. We are installing a revamped bike wash this winter and fall, but down by the beach, right off that main entrance, there are bottle fillers, and then also there's the potential to fill in the amenity building itself.
Awesome. I'm not seeing any other hands at this time, so thank you so much for the presentation. When do you think you'll be coming back with the next phase? Hopefully to this committee in this council term?
Yes, Councillor Eastmere, the draft capital plan at this stage has design funds in 2026. So pending council approval, we could be back talking about design next year on the phase 3.
Great. I can't wait to say yes to that. So thank you.
And then also for the accessibility audit, if we go ahead this fall with Westwood Lake Trails, I would expect this committee to have a role in that process and looking at the improvements that are recommended.
Excellent. Thank you. And that really leads perfectly into our other business, because we don't have any reports. Under other business, we had 2 items of correspondence, one related to some accessibility concerns at Maffeo Sutton Park, and another related to Bowen Park accessibility concerns. The letters were part of the agenda package, and I believe that Charlotte is ready to help address some of those concerns about both Bowen and Maffeo Sutton Park.
Thank you. How would you like that we address these items here? I'm assuming everyone's read the correspondence. Should we ask questions, or would you like me to just give an overview and what might be next, assuming everyone's read them?
Yeah, just a brief overview, if you wouldn't mind, just like your response, maybe starting with the Maffeo Sutton Park one.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you very much. So the Maffeo Sutton Park correspondence concerns around parking and accessibility issues related to parking. There were about 6 items raised in that correspondence, and some of them I think related to a lot of confusion around parking in that lot, because some of the items mentioned in the correspondence weren't actually correct. So the individual who wrote in had heard that the requirement for meter tickets is being enforced for those who stay under 3 hours. That is not actually correct, because parking is actually free for the first 3 hours and no ticket is required. And that the author had also indicated that someone had posted on the internet that 12 cars were towed from within the park, and we double checked with the parking and bylaw department, and that's not correct to our staff's knowledge. Cars really only get towed in very exceptional circumstances, like if they were creating an obstruction or if they had around 3 or 5 unpaid parking tickets. But there definitely is some confusion in that park around parking and confusion around signage. The author suggested that one sign suggests no ticket is needed if staying less than 3 hours. That is correct, but that might not also jive with some of the information that's on the app, and that was indicated as being a potential point of confusion also. So also the locations of the sign is important. There is not a lot of signs or any signage about parking close to the accessible parking spots, so that might necessitate you to travel over to the parking area there where the tower is. So parking information overall is not clear. This has been discussed, and we actually have a meeting set up between the parks team and the parking team to review signage and improvements that we can make. I would also remind the committee that we are committed to a number of park audits under the Rick Hansen accessibility audits. Nothing at Maffeo Sutton Park has currently been identified on our to-do list. We absolutely have the opportunity to reprioritise, though.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Armstrong, did you have a question?
Just wanted to make a point that I think it's been really good, because during big events, the city actually has drop-off zones and stuff for people. So I think that's a really good point that's sometimes missed. So there has been a very good concerted effort recognizing that it is limited parking to help those with accessibility issues and stuff, so they can be dropped off. And then granted, it needs a driver. And the other point too being that sometimes we are using buses to bring people from other points, so that is eliminating it. So I think the city's moving in that direction. So just wanted to say that there's more being done that people are aware of. Thanks.
And Jocelyn? Oh, Jocelyn, you're muted at the moment.
Sorry, I just put my hand down by accident. This is the park I think I spend the most time in, and I think of my organization when we have park meetups, it's this one. And there aren't enough spaces just for a meetup of our group. So that means there's less. I think there's only 6 in one area. And I know that sounds like a lot, but when there's an event there of any size, let alone like Canada Day and Pride and stuff, there is a real shortage. And I confess I'm not like 100% familiar with the big event strategy the city uses for parking in that area, except as Councillor Armstrong mentioned, the drop-off area. I've noticed several times that people come, and in the off time, in the middle of the kind of week, people come and park in those spaces to eat their lunch. So there's misuse of those spaces, the accessible spaces, and there's not generally enough of them. And I really would encourage the city to see if there's a way to allocate a couple more for those big events, or for any, to maybe by request from medium events or the food truck festival or something like that. Because I mean, a lot of folks can't come if they don't have accessible parking, and they don't have someone to drop them off either. And if you consider the elders plus the non-elder disabled people in the city, I think there's probably room for quite a few more. And we don't have the spaces at the old hotel really to rely on anymore for those big events. So I just wanted to say I've had a real struggle with the availability of enough accessible parking there as well. The ones that are there are quite accessible, at least for me, and I really appreciate their width. So thanks.
Okay, and Sean, did you have a question?
Yeah, and I'm not really sure. I mean, there's probably no answer to this, but I think something that comes up, and you could say this about any park in town, is that during the summer, there's not enough parking. And is that, I don't know if that's just a byproduct of the city becoming bigger. I don't know if it's a byproduct of the only way being able to get to these parks is by driving to them. But I do also support, I think, in terms of next steps, when we're looking at which properties, which parks to audit, Maffeo Sutton seems to get the most use. And so I think increasing to support the demand of that space is really valuable. I think as soon as you get into when you can park and how long you can park and how you have to get there and whether you should eat your lunch there or not, that's just an endless challenge to sort of manage and police that effort. I don't know where you just suddenly add more parking for people, and I don't even know if that's enough, but I do support an audit of Maffeo Sutton as the next park to look at and add improvements to. Thanks.
So to that end, we do have some upcoming audits, the Rick Hansen audits, and there's an ongoing one right now at Roxman Stadium, and then there are 6 outdoor spaces, including Westwood Lake, Neck Point Park, Harewood Centennial Park, Beaufort Park, Bowen Park, and the Waterfront Walkway. Noticeably absent from that list is Maffeo Sutton Park. So what we could do today is entertain a motion from this committee to recommend to council that Maffeo Sutton be prioritized for the next outdoor Rick Hansen audit. And Ms. Verkar, you have wording to that effect?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I do. If you'd like, I can read it out right now, just to make sure that the committee has clarity on.
Yes, please.
The recommendation. So the motion could state that the committee recommend that council direct staff to add Maffeo Sutton Park assessment audit to the list of parks, trails, and open spaces being audited in 2026.
Okay, moved by Sean. Oh, you're not moving, pardon me?
No, just the, is that how it works? Okay.
You can go ahead and speak.
Oh, just the language of add to the list versus prioritize is a different thing. So if prioritize means it's at the front of the list, add to the list maybe means it's at the back.
So add and prioritize?
Yeah.
Make it both. Okay, so if you're comfortable with that, or are you willing to move that?
Yeah.
Okay, moved by Sean, seconded by Nicole. And all in favor? I see, and is anyone opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And just to speak to that further, the audit doesn't necessarily mean that anything will change, but it because that needs to have a budget associated with it, but the audit is the first thing to really identify where the problems are at. Richard?
I can say that definitely there has been a lot more wheelchair users using that park space. Just in the last month, I have a friend who is a close friend of mine who's a wheelchair user, and one day we were hanging out down there. We counted 13 wheelchair users just in the general main plaza area. So that might speak to some of the improvements that have been made within the park itself.
Nice. Nicole?
I'm not sure if anybody has this information, but is there a percentage of parking spots that are supposed to be allocated towards being accessible parking? Because yes, there's a shortage of parking down there, and but it seems like the number of parking spots compared to the total number of parking spots in Maffeo Sutton is lower than, say, at Bevan Park or the NAC or even Westwood Lake, which has far fewer parking spots in general.
Yes, I can speak to that through the chair. Nicole, there are guidelines for that, for facilities and for outdoor spaces. And as the committee has recognised this evening, there likely never will be enough parking in certain parks. However, we should look to make sure the ratio is appropriate, and we can do that as part of this audit.
And Bay, you have a question?
Yeah, I was just recalling there was a presentation on with this committee before about the washrooms at Maffeo Sutton Park being replaced. Is that still going forward?
Through the chair, yes, it is. I spent a lot of my time today working on that, and we look forward to bringing forward some designs to you in the near future.
Awesome. And there was one other piece of correspondence flagging a number of concerns with Bowen Park, specifically the lower picnic shelter area. I know that Bowen is already on the list for an accessibility audit, but it's more specific to the grounds adjacent to the Bowen complex.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Councillor Eastmere. There are a number of concerns raised about the lower Bowen picnic shelter area. One of the things I would say about this is that some of these findings and items that were noticed by the author of the correspondence were fairly typical, and I would say if you were to attend any city park, you may find some of these similar items relating to a lack or no accessible parking in certain areas, in this case particularly reference to the lower Bowen gravel parking lot and the rhododendron garden area. Also some issues with trails, no drop-off area, and certain areas of the park not being accessible. You know, as you identified, the audit that is planned at Bowen really is around the complex. If the committee wished, we could divert that and prioritise differently to this location. I think these concerns are absolutely valid, but not particularly specific to this location. So it's the question of prioritization.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's an issue with many places, and it just continues to speak to the importance of this committee's work. And I really thank the author for bringing these items forward, because until it's flagged and becomes top of mind for people, we can't address it. So thank you for that, and I look forward to seeing the results from these Rick-Hansen audits, and then doing what I can in my current position to support the budget to make these changes. So thank you very much for that update, and thank you to the committee for all of your excellent questions and comments today. Great presentations, and with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Nicole, seconded by Richard. All in favor? Thank you very much, everyone. Please reach out to myself or Councillor Armstrong anytime. We're here for you, and have a great rest.